Hello there. Welcome to this lesson on the Romantic era. We're listening to the theme music from one of the most romantic films of all time, Gone with the Wind, written by Max Steiner. Now, the type of romance that you think of when you watch Gone with the Wind is not the same thing as the romance of the Romantic era. Let's see what the ideas were behind the Romantic era. What inspired Romanticism in music were, among other things, the democratic ideas of the French Revolution and the heroicism of the Napoleonic era. Some of these ideals include originality, self-expression, the individual, the genius composer, rather than mastering established forms of techniques, or the composer as a fine craftsman. So in past eras, composers were trained to use the established techniques and to master them. Now we look, and we still sort of do look, for composers that are highly original and do things in their own way. And this started with the Romantic period. An important change in society at this time is that the music that was being performed just for the elite, being performed in aristocratic chambers and for those who could commission music, was now being performed for the middle class that was emerging, and public concerts were being organized and operas were being attended by this emerging middle class. So music is becoming more democratic. It's communicating more to the masses than to the upper class. There are many other inspirations behind Romanticism from art and poetry and literature. We call this extra musical associations or extra musical influences. Some composers were drawn to nature for inspiration. This is particularly true of Beethoven and Mendelssohn. Richard Wagner sought to combine all of these art forms into one. He called this his Gesamtkunstwerk, complete artwork or universal artwork, combining music with art, with dance, with set construction, with poetry and literature, all of the art forms. One type of music that's fairly common throughout the Romantic period is program music. This is based on an underlying concept or story, an extra musical association that is provided often in a concert program. Berlioz, Liszt, and Strauss wrote many of these, what came to be called symphonic tone poems for orchestra, and there were many other short character pieces that were based on some sort of a personality or a character or a situation that kind of reached beyond the music to some other image. There was another group of composers that were composing in traditional forms and genres, and they didn't rely on extra musical programs. These composers, such as Schubert and Brahms and Mendelssohn, wrote what came to be called absolute music, in which the music was about the notes and the patterns and the motives and the themes and the musical things, and nothing extra musical. Another trend at this time is nationalism. There were composers that were trying to express the characteristics of their homeland. We see this with Grieg in Norway, Dvorak and Mussorgsky, all had a nationalistic tinge to some of their music. The piano music of the Romantic period, it really becomes expressive and powerful because of the new cast iron pianos, their greater expressive capabilities, and they exploited that. In particularly, Chopin, Schumann, and Liszt were writing much more complicated, intricate pieces, exploratory pieces for the piano. Now here's a summary of the genres of this era. We talked about the symphonic poem that were inspired by extra musical things, sometimes paintings or historical events or something in the past. The symphony is still being developed, especially by those traditional absolute music composers, but by many others as well. The concerto is still a very popular form of music because it allows for virtuosic performer and to highlight virtuosity. Piano music of all kinds flourishes in the Romantic period, including those character pieces we talked about. But still, there are sonatas and etudes. Art song takes off in a major way with the music of Schubert and Schumann, and also Brahms writing important art songs. And this is inspired by the poetry of the era. And opera, because it allows for the combination of many art forms, as we talked about, is also a central part of what's occurring in the Romantic period. Now here's an overview of some of the characteristics of Romantic music. Something that composers were exploring was a greater variety of tone colors and harmonic colors. They expanded the orchestra and included new instruments. This is particularly true with Berlioz and Mahler and Strauss. Enormous orchestras with all sorts of new sounds and timbres, and harmonic colors from just experimenting with harmony and other new types of chord progressions that will emerge in the Romantic period. These chord progressions become increasingly more chromatic, using altered chords and borrowed chords, free treatment of dissonance, frequently shifting tonal centers. The music is much less diatonic and much more chromatic and free. Overall, there's sort of a preference for extremes. There are very short, intricate miniatures, or very long, immensely dramatic works for large-scale forces, such as Mahler's Symphony of 1000. So we have Chopin's preludes, which are beautiful miniatures for piano on the other end of that extreme. If we were to now compare the Romantic period versus the music of the Classical period, we could portray Romantic music as being less balanced and rational, greater emphasis on lyrical expression and depth of emotion. Classical music is more objective. The emotions are treated more scientifically, I guess you could say, than in Romantic music, where all of the emotions are at the forefront. Formal plans and tonal plans are important to classical music. There are many with the sonata form and the other rondo form and ternary form and rounded binary form and all of the sorts of forms. More or less they follow these forms and things kind of fit within them. But in the Romantic period, music does not always fit within a form. The organization is sometimes based on cyclical repetition, transforming themes, the use of recurring leitmotifs, things that recur to connect the music together and organize it, but no overriding formal plan. This is not true of the absolute music composers, of course, but we see this trend in the music of others during the Romantic period. One last thing to say about the Romantic period is that there's a much freer sense of time, the use of rubato in performance and slowing and speeding the tempo. All of these things make Romantic music seem less stiff, more flexible. All right, so that is an overview of what's happening during the Romantic period, and you can now take the quiz that follows.